Jobs are just a silly phase work is going through. This is a quote from Rishad Tobaccowala, this week's guest on the DesuckifyWork podcast. I love the quote because it reframes what we're all experiencing right now in a provocative way. Work and jobs are uncoupling. The stable 9-to-5 is becoming a hodgepodge of freelance, gig work, and side hustles. It's how we work now, and the trend is accelerating. Historically, jobs are just a blip on the work timeline, an industrial revolution creation to make sure widgets got made more reliably and at scale. Before that, we had farmers and craftspeople. So what's next? Rishad believes we're shifting back towards decentralized tasks, and he sees a fractional model as the best way for workers and companies to manage this. Pay folks for 50, 60, or 70% of their time. Throw in some benefits and get consistent access to the skills you need. On the flip side, individuals get a stable foundation and room to explore whatever lights them up. I'm a huge fan of this idea, and I'm genuinely shocked it's not more prevalent, especially in the ad agency world. Look around on LinkedIn and you'll see some of the most talented folks the business has ever seen with open to work banners on their profile pics. Imagine how much better our work could be if we tapped into that talent. Rishad is a very smart man. He's an author, podcast host, and advisor to some top agencies. We touched on a bunch of topics related to the future of work. My biggest takeaway? We need strong leadership more than ever. And we need to remember that the best leadership is creative, curious, and optimistic. We can do great things, and we've never been in a better position to do so than right now.
It's your life on the clock.
Welcome to the DesuckifyWork podcast, the show where we cut through the BS and find ways to make work more fun, more human, and less ridiculous. All of which makes your business more profitable, by the way. If you enjoy this one, please like, share, rate, review, or subscribe to the podcast. Let the desuckifying begin. Here's Rishad. Okay. Rishad Tobaccowala, welcome to the DesuckifyWork podcast.
Thank you very much, and hopefully I don't suckify.
I have a feeling you won't. I've read a lot of your work, and I'm excited to dig into some of it today. So before we do, I'd love to just give you a chance to introduce yourself, talk a little bit about what you do and how you came to be doing it.
Absolutely. So I'm Rishad Tobaccowala. These days, for the past 7 years, I work for myself, and I am an author, speaker, and advisor. And what I do is I focus on helping people see, think, and feel differently about how they grow themselves, their teams, and their business. I do it through a lens of reinvention, but specifically change management, the future of work, and modern leadership. That's what I do and have been doing for the last 7 years.
Yeah.
One of the companies I advise lightly is a company in the agency space that may be known to people called the Publicis Group.
Oh, sure.
And the first part of my career, so as I said, I retired from having a job. I did not retire from work. So for the past 7 years, I worked for myself. But for the first 37 years, I worked for the Publicis Group. First as Leo Burnett, which was acquired by Publicis about 25 years ago. And the last 5 years at Publicis, I was the chief strategist and growth officer globally.
Okay.
I also, prior to that, was chairman of their digital assets like Digitas and Razorfish. And also prior to that, helped set up and be part of the leadership team of what is known as Publicis Media.
Nice.
So I worked on digital, creative, data, staff, as well as operating roles.
That's awesome. I mean, it's interesting. Not every day you hear somebody stayed within the same organization in the advertising world. I mean, I know you kind of moved in different parts of it, but
yeah, I did move in different parts. So while I spent 37 years, anybody who looks at my LinkedIn will think I was, after the first 11 or 10 years, I was changing my company every 3 years.
Yeah.
So I have 11 different company brands like Publicis Media, Digitas, Razorfish, Starcom, Leo Burnett. But so that's one way of thinking about it. The other way is that I do not like change, or a less charitable way is nobody gave me a job for 37 years, so I stayed on the only one that I had, which is not that actually unfair because believe it or not, no one has given me a job offer in those 37 years.
Really?
Yeah, and I never looked for a job in those 37 years. So I'm not sure which of those was a driving factor, but I
That's
spent
wild.
all my career in the same place.
Well, regardless, it seems like it all worked out okay for you. And it
It
seems
did. It
like,
did. I was very fortunate that the
yeah,
company liked me. They still do, and I still stay connected.
yeah.
But I sort of evolved because of a belief that I have, which is that every career has a midnight hour, and the
Mm,
smart people leave at 5 to 12.
yeah.
And in many
Interesting.
industries, and particularly the agency and services business, very few people do.
Yeah.
They wait for 1 minute past 12 and then everything turns
Mm,
suckified. So I
yeah.
sort of de-suckified my career by leaving at 5 to 12.
Yeah. I get that. I think some folks might argue that the midnight hour in advertising is somewhere around age 34, based on
Yes. Yes.
the,
Well, what basically happens, the midnight hour is in services business, especially in the agency business, is tending younger
yeah.
because we have lots of challenges in our business and lots of opportunities. But one of the challenges is we probably are a very, not very, but quite more, we higher index as an ageist business versus other businesses.
Mm-hmm. I
And
would
there's a
say
lot
so.
of reasons for it. One is people think that as you're older, you can't learn new technologies,
Mm-hmm.
you don't understand culture.
Yep.
But I think it's also because we get more expensive as we get older,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's another challenge.
Yeah, I think all those are reasons, and some people will argue how valid they are. I do think there's a lot of value in people who have a little more seasoning doing the kind of work you're doing, where you're advising and you're helping people see things through the lens of experience and wisdom that just can't be seen when we're younger.
I agree with you. I sort of describe myself as seasoned rather than older.
Mm-hmm.
And in today's age, especially in the age of AI, raw expertise is less important. It's not important. It's less important
Yeah.
than crystallized intelligence, which is the
Mm-hmm.
ability to connect dots,
Yeah.
including dots in new ways. And that's what people with a certain amount of seasoning have because we've seen a lot and we can feel a lot. We also know how to guide and mentor.
Mm-hmm.
So to a great extent, there's this famous line, which is new brooms sweep clean and the old brooms know the corners.
I love that.
And so we really do should think about that. And the other thing with ageism is it's the only form of discrimination that we practice against our future selves,
It's so weird. Yeah.
right? Which is to a great extent, like I mean, I'm not pro discrimination of any sort,
Mm-hmm.
excepting, that you should sort of discriminate people with against people who are evil. But outside of that,
Right.
there shouldn't be like discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
But in most other cases, we discriminate against the other, and here we're
Yeah.
discriminating against ourselves.
Yeah. It's wild. I think we do a good job of convincing ourselves that it is an other,
Yeah, but
right?
it's basically us because
Yeah.
unless you decide not to grow old
Yeah.
or you decide not, you won't make it to a more
Mm-hmm.
seasoned age, you basically do. But no, so I've been very fortunate, and to a certain extent, in my newer book, which is about a year old, I basically speak about why, in many ways, I found a financial way for companies to both leverage the talent of more seasoned people
Mm-hmm.
in a way that actually gives seasoned people more agency while reducing costs to
Mm.
the companies. I call that a
Interesting.
fractionalized employee,
Sure.
which is a lot of people at some stage would say who are more seasoned, either because of age or because they have a certain amount of income or a certain amount of money put away or their kids have grown up
Mm-hmm.
or they have other reasons that they need to take some time off, either looking after aging parents or
Yeah.
themselves. They would like to have a job, maybe 50, 60% of the time, not 100% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd like to have health care.
Yeah.
But, and there's actually a way you can do that legally in the United States. It's called a
Mm-hmm.
fractionalized employee,
Yeah.
which is an employee who has all the benefits of an employee,
Mm.
excepting All their financial benefits are prorated to the time they work, 60%, 80%.
Yeah.
Healthcare is 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And you can actually end up with world-class talent, more cost effective, giving them what they want.
Mm-hmm. I know.
Right? And so to a great extent, I look at companies and say, why are we not rethinking work? Why are we constantly thinking that we have to make 0 and 1 decisions?
Oh man.
In or out? Why?
Yeah. It is bizarre. I mean, in particular, I think of this in the advertising world. I don't see almost any of this, the fractionalized kind of thing. I mean, there's a freelance culture around creative workers, but even that is usually bring you in for 100% time most of the time. And we're just, treating you slightly different on the books than we treat a full-time employee. But the idea of somebody doing 50, 60, 70% work, it's almost like it breaks the brains of people who work in advertising and probably elsewhere too. And yet when you say it, I'm like, well, that makes a ton of sense.
It definitely makes sense. And by the way, our business is actually, we are used to these in and outs. We call it freelancing particularly.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And my whole stuff is, look, there are advantages to freelancing, both for the freelancer and the company, which is you can plug and play as you want.
Mm-hmm.
There are disadvantages both to the freelancer, which is you have unclear cash flow and no healthcare, right? And to the company that you might not be able to access the talent when you want to.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't have the experience and sort of culture that comes with people who are with you. But at the same time, these people are also doing other things outside. So they're both bringing you with new perspectives.
Yep.
Right. And so to a great extent, for an imagination business, I don't think we imagine good enough.
I would agree with that. I would say across the board, when it comes to the way we think about work, we design work, we're kind of stuck on autopilot.
We are stuck on autopilot. And unfortunately or fortunately, whichever way you look at it, the modern sort of AI age is going to put a lot of pressure on our businesses. It's putting pressure on all businesses.
Yep.
It's also creating, by the way, great opportunities for businesses, but it's providing pressure on our businesses because at heart, the way our businesses get paid is for butts and seats. And we make up all kinds of stories on how we've changed it, but basically most businesses is butts and seats.
Yeah.
Okay. And what AI does is for the same work, you're going to require fewer butts and seats. Okay. Now, that does not mean that those butts and seats can't create other high value work.
Right.
But for the work you have, it's highly unlikely that a client will pay you the same next year as they do this year because they'll say you have productivity through AI. Give us a 10 to 20%.
Right.
Right. So we're now beginning to have pressure on how to reimagine our business.
Yeah.
So that's coming. And so I always tell people that we don't have a technology crisis. We have a future of work, change management, and leadership crisis. Right? We keep blaming it on like, ChatGPT did this, a client did that, somebody did that. No. Look in the mirror, leaders of agencies.
Yeah.
There you see both the challenger and the rescuer, which is you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I'm thinking back to something you said when you described your own work evolution.
Yep.
And I know you talk about this in your own writing that, you stopped having a job, but you didn't stop working.
Yeah.
Right. And you wrote a piece that sort of speaks to this idea that, you had a phrase, I think it was like jobs are just a silly phrase that work
phase that work is going through. Yeah, jobs are a silly phase that work is going through. I would say it's a phase that work is going through because obviously jobs themselves are not silly. Yeah. But jobs are a phase that work going through. And I'm all for jobs, by the way. I'm all for jobs because there are a lot of benefits that come from jobs. Two of which are obviously healthcare, which is what I'm trying to figure out how to get that.
Yeah.
And the other is you have a steady income, which is kind of good because you have a steady amount of bills you have to pay. Okay.
Yeah.
But what I try to tell people today is if you get a job and your job, you like your job and you have a primary job, that is beautiful. So I'm all for it. But today you should more think about how to get work. And if you get work with healthcare. So you could have a primary job, which is a fractionalized job, which takes
Mm-hmm.
50 to 60% of your time,
Yep.
right? You get paid 50 to 60%. Maybe, okay, fine. You work 75%, you get paid 60%.
Yeah.
But you basically have on paper the other 25, 30% to do what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
As long as it's not competitive, it could
Right.
be a vacation, go back to school, look after somebody,
Mm-hmm.
side hobby, side project. You'll be much better off. You'll have some of your expenses covered. You'll have healthcare. You'll
Mm-hmm.
have optionality. You'll be better on both ends of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? But what it does require is it requires a lot of us to take risks. So very much like, and some of us may not be in a position to take a risk. And I tell people that you should thrust risk upon yourself before it's thrust upon you. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always basically said, hey, listen, I think one of the reasons that was successful in staying as long as I did at Publicis, even though I did not look for an outside job and nobody came to me,
Mm-hmm.
is because in my small little mind, I thought that I had enough skills, expertise, and reputation
Mm-hmm.
that if the day someone came to me and said, loser, get out of here,
Mm-hmm.
right, I would be okay. So I was always in the back of my mind, making sure I was building relationships, not to get a job, but being nice to people, building modern skills, building a reputation. So if
Mm-hmm.
I had to be thrown outside,
Yep.
I could find a way forward. And
Mm-hmm.
why that's really good is that allowed me to take all the challenges and drama of a company,
Mm-hmm.
right? As I tell people, if you love what you do 70% of the time, which is what I did, and you don't like it about 30%, and as long as those 30% have got nothing to do with ethics, morals, or health issues that makes you go crazy,
Yeah.
that's a fantastic job.
Yep.
30% of the time where you say, what the hell am I doing? I hate, not hate this, I dislike this.
Yeah.
70% you like it and you get paid, fantastic job.
Yep.
If it's 100% that you love it, then it's like me, where you don't actually work at a job,
Mm-hmm.
or you actually are in a spa and you think you're in a job.
Mm-hmm.
You're not working,
Yeah.
right? But by its nature, whenever you have clients, challenges, and people, you have human drama. And that's the 25, 30% that you kind of, that's
Yeah.
the stuckify part of
Yeah.
the
Mm-hmm.
work.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's really the key a lot of times to, we we find ourselves in jobs sometimes where that percentage grows. And a lot of times it feels very much self-imposed because it's humans being human, and we make things more complicated than they need to be. We make conversation more complex and adversarial than it needs to be, and all these things. And suddenly that number bleeds into 40, 50, 60%. And everybody's miserable. And it's really hard to kind of bring it back. I'm
Yeah.
curious in your experience, whether it was during your time at Publicis Group or now advising folks like that, when you see that, where it seems like people are overburdened with the suck part of work, right? It's past the tipping point. What kinds of things do you do or do you suggest, or what questions do you ask to help people see a way out?
Well, I would say that there are 3 or 4 things that I recommend to people.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing is find out if the issue you or something in your mind or something outside.
Mm-hmm.
Because yes, what I mean by you or something in your mind, sometimes we basically not pretend, we sometimes believe that other people don't like us
Mm-hmm.
or they don't care for us or we're not in good standing.
Yep.
And usually what I find is many of those cases, some of the time it's right instinctively, but
Mm-hmm.
many of the times it isn't right because actually most people aren't thinking about us at all,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? I tell people that most people are just basically thinking about themselves, how to pay their bills, take care of their problems. They're not like
Mm-hmm.
fixating on you. So that's number one. The second one is, could it possibly be that you have let your calendar take control of your life?
Mm-hmm.
And recently on a podcast that I do, I talked with a lady who's written a book called Your Best Meeting Yet. And she basically says that in most cases, especially in our business, we spend a lot of time in meetings that are absolutely a waste of time,
Mm-hmm.
right? And she says, you should not have a meeting unless it meets one of four criteria, add another criteria, otherwise don't have a meeting.
Okay.
And her stuff is, if you're going to have a meeting where you have a meeting if there's a debate, you need to decide, you need to develop a person,
Mm-hmm.
or you need to discuss something that requires a lot of back and forth.
Okay.
Okay. And then if you have one of those four, and at the same time, the meeting has the subject is either ambiguous or complex,
Mm-hmm.
it's a one-way decision, which is once you make it, you can't retreat from it.
Mm-hmm.
Or there is emotion involved. That's the only reason to have meetings.
Mm.
Otherwise, everything else is information gathering. And she says today, in so many meetings, people just send their note takers. Basically, what
Right.
they're saying is this meeting could have been a memo.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So one of the things she suggests is, something which she calls like a meeting doomsday, which is, as a team, you remove all meetings from everybody's calendar.
Mm.
And don't put them back unless it meets one of those criteria. And when you put them back, ask, do they have to happen as often? Do they have to be as long? And do as many people have to attend?
Mm.
And that usually frees up between 25 to 35% of people's time.
Yeah.
Which is 1 to 1.5 days, which is usually the time that they get overwhelmed. They say, I've got 7 days of work, but 5 days. Well, you just remove those other 2 days just by doing this.
Mm. I love that.
Right.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's you, right? Sometimes it's in your mind. Sometimes it's somebody else. Okay. If it's somebody else, I always basically say, go to those people and have a conversation saying, hey, listen, you could do a better job if they could help you do a better job. But there's some things that they're doing that you seem to either not understand what's going on, or it impacts the way you do your job. And in many cases, a lot of these people don't know that they're doing something that is setting you going, right? So I think if you do that, about 75 to 80% of your problems, right, are solved just by discussing it with the people, figuring out whether it's you having a calendar issue or whether you're like inventing shit in your mind that isn't actually true.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's the other 20%, which is, the world sucks and you have to do it, because if you decide you can't do it, you might lose your job and you need the income. But if you can reduce, 3/4 of this by this, it becomes much more important. So I'm not saying there aren't things. There are things. There are always challenging situations, challenging people, challenging circumstances. That's why we get paid.
Sure.
But we can often reduce the intensity of it so we can be a little less stressed.
Yeah. I think that, I've seen it. The rigor around the meeting criteria, I think, is amazing. I think a lot of places have tried that, but man, we just give up too soon.
We give up too soon, and the way to do it is actually literally kick out everybody.
Yeah.
Just kick out everybody. Kick out all meetings and start again. And you'll find that most of the meetings aren't necessary. It's like barnacles at the bottom of a ship. They just grow and grow and grow.
I know. I've definitely experienced that. And it does become sort of just this default culture of just like, I have some ambiguity in my head, therefore I want a meeting, as opposed to giving myself a chance to try to sort through it. I think on the other part of it, the stuff that's in our head or these sort of beliefs, these faulty beliefs we have, it is amazing. I work as a coach, and I certainly see this in my clients. I get coached and I have people point it out to me. The one about we think people don't like us or are out to get us and all that stuff. And just the simple reminder that most people aren't thinking of us.
Yeah, they aren't thinking. They're too busy with just thinking about themselves or the issues they have and challenges they have. And I keep reminding people nobody cares that much.
I think it's a wonderful way to check ourselves when we're feeling that overwhelm. Is just like, oh yeah, nobody cares. That's right. Okay, let me go back to my work. I'm curious for you as you're thinking about the evolution of work and this move away, at least partially, from jobs and more into this kind of portfolio careers, fractional and all this. Like there's something sort of exciting about it, but there's also, like, I think for a lot of people, a lot of anxiety around it. Can you, in that environment, find a way to create something that feels like security or stability so that your nervous system doesn't just constantly feel on edge in that environment?
So the way to do it, it's always difficult. And, yesterday I had lunch with two very senior people, both ladies who were very senior in both the client and agency side. Both
Okay.
had at some stage been very senior at clients, both have been very senior agencies. And they both simultaneously, in part, in a very, very small part, because of conversations they've had with me and my book,
Mm-hmm.
right, or Rethinking Work, decided to leave and to double down on their other side businesses. So one is running a candy store,
Mm.
and she used to be the president of one of the WPP companies and very
Wow.
senior at McDonald's.
Okay.
The other was very senior at Publicis and was the CMO of like cars.com. And
Mm.
she's working with her husband on a guitar company. They
Wow.
make guitars
Mm-hmm.
and ukuleles and other accessories.
Mm-hmm.
And yesterday I saw both of them in the guitar studio because I wanted to sort of see that.
Yeah.
And we had conversations. And even with everything, and they prepared for this, etc., you always have this thing: did I make the right decision? Did I not make the right decision? There's
Mm-hmm.
obviously, when you give up a full-time job, you give up a sense of identity, you give up a sense of community, a lot of other things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you won't ever have that feeling. It's rare that you won't ever have that feeling. Now, like, I don't have that feeling, and that's because I did this late stage in my career, if that
Mm-hmm.
made sense. Like after I worked for 37 years, right?
Right.
And I was in a particular position after 37 years and having planned it, that if this phase turned out to be completely terrible and nobody wanted to talk to me and nothing happened,
Mm-hmm.
I would be okay,
Yeah.
right? But even then, you sometimes say, hey, like, am I still in the, what am I doing? All of that.
Yeah.
So one is this idea of a certain amount of doubt and uncertainty
Mm-hmm.
never goes away.
Yeah.
And a certain amount of that is actually good because it drives you. It's a
Mm-hmm.
motivator.
Sure.
But too much of it freezes you,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the advice I give people is, look, you're not trying to like reduce and eliminate it. It's going to be impossible to eliminate.
Yeah.
What you have to do is you got to sort of manage what are you worried about? And what don't you like today? And what are you worried about tomorrow?
Mm.
Write it down. What are the things you don't like right now? And what are you worried about tomorrow? And what you'll basically find is what you're worried about tomorrow is that you don't have the job you don't like today.
Mm.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you're going to say, I don't like what I'm doing today, but if I don't have a job, I won't have any income and I'll be even worse off. So I'm worried about tomorrow
Yeah.
and I don't like my today. Okay. So I'll say, okay, now if that, again, I'm simplifying. Other people are again,
Sure.
if that is the problem. So I said, okay, if that is the problem, and that's most people's one of their problems,
Mm-hmm.
I say, okay, here's what you got to do. One way to get rid of both those, not reduce both of those, is to start spending 15, 20% of your time lining up what your next gig is.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't lost your job, actively go look for the next job.
Yep.
And if it's not another job, find a side hustle or side gig,
Mm-hmm.
which ideally in no circumstances is in competition with what you're doing, so you don't have an integrity problem.
Sure.
Okay. Start doing the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
What will happen is if you do that, it'll solve for two things. That 20% that you're doing on the side, which may even occur on weekends. So I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying, right?
Yeah.
We'll basically say, hey, look, I've got this other escape valve.
Mm-hmm.
So I can take the shit at work.
Yeah.
But the other is when you do that, you'll say, because of this escape valve, I will take the shit at work.
Mm-hmm.
Or you find, hey, this escape valve actually is going to be quite lucrative. I can start dialing down this thing at work.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I tell people, it's a great line. I wish I had come up with this. So there was a gentleman. So I write this Sunday Substack.
Mm-hmm.
And then about a year ago, 8, 9 months ago, suddenly I was getting a lot of new signups, which were being referred to by another Substack. And
Okay.
it was disproportionate for like 2 weeks. 60% of my signups were coming from one place.
Hmm.
So I decided I got to go check out who this person is.
Yeah.
And it just said from the Still Wandering Substack. And I said, I'm trying to understand what I write about is nothing to do with like travel and tourism.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering what the Still Wandering website was. So I went and looked at it. And it wasn't about travel and tourism. It was actually a 25-year-old trying to figure out what they wanted to do in their career.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
had pointed to my writing because I was helping. So I called this gentleman. I not called him. I sent him an email saying, thank
Yeah.
you for all these referrals. I'd love to chat with you. He was in London. He and I
Mm-hmm.
chatted. I invited him onto one of my podcasts,
Nice.
right? And he had written this amazing piece, which you can find. It's called The Death of a Corporate Job. So you
Mm-hmm.
just call Death of a Corporate Job, Alex McCann. And he says, Rishad, in your book, you have got something wrong. And I said, okay, what is it? And he says, the way you're writing the book about the side hustle and the side gig is that the main job is the main gig if this is the side hustle and side gig.
Mm.
He says that is right when it comes down to time, but that is not right when it comes down to passion and interest,
Hmm.
right? That
Mm-hmm.
the side gig and side hustle is actually the main job and the main hustle.
Hmm.
And the main hustle is venture capital that's feeding this job.
That's wild.
Right?
Yeah.
So to think of your main job as funding your next job.
Mm.
So that's a very interesting way of looking at it.
That's a lot of wisdom from a 25-year-old.
From a 25-year-old, right?
Yeah.
And so what happens is that, and so people say, like, why do you talk to these people, like 80-year-olds and 25-year-olds? I said, like, I have nothing to do with age or gender or where they come from. I like talking to different people because everybody's got some really weird take.
Yeah.
And which both sometimes is an enhancement of my thinking or a like pushback, or it's completely new thinking. It's nothing to do with thinking at all.
Yeah.
But I think those are the things that I sort of, so what I would tell people very specifically is, if you don't like what you do, figure out whether it's about your calendar, yourself, or it's about somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Then if you're fearful about this, start thinking about doing this on the side, even including weekends. And when you start doing that, you will probably dislike your job a little less because you've got this outside thing. You'll be willing to take this because you're building this other thing. So you don't have to make a 0-1 decision. It's very scary, especially if you are the only person earning an income and therefore in the United States having healthcare to go cold turkey. It's right. And no, do not think you're going to make a whole bunch of money as an influencer or any of that as a YouTube star. It's not going to happen. Okay. Right. And no, you cannot basically go on Polymarket and Kalshi, Kashi and bet and stuff like that. That's not the way to think about it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I call degenerate thinking.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not going to get you anywhere. But those are some of the ways to sort of think about it. And also, by the way, recognize that almost everybody, if not everybody, is in the same predicament, including your most senior boss. She or he are trying to figure out, are they still relevant? What are they going to do next? It's common.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening. If you're liking what you hear and like the idea of making work not suck, I invite you to schedule a free half-hour discovery session. What would make your work culture more human? Let's talk about it. All right, back to the show. Yeah, it's interesting. I think about something else you said a bit ago around, you said something about like it's the job specific skill is becoming a little less important. You know, this idea as work is evolving, how do we package ourselves, I guess, right? Like for years, I packaged myself as a copywriter and then a creative director. That was really easy. But in a world where it's a little bit less just about that, and it's more about, how you can bring this crystallized intelligence to bear on different problems that businesses have. How do you have something that people can grab onto if it's not that specific thing?
So here's a suggestion, and there are lots of people who've written books on it and approaches to it. And obviously people like you provide great coaching and everything else. So there's a world out there. But my contribution to this discussion is something that I started helping both my colleagues and my clients with about 20 years ago. When I was senior enough and people would ask for career advice, and I said, do this. Okay. And I said, I didn't actually do this, but I actually ended up, without knowing it, I ended up doing it. So I'm retrofitting what I seem to have done, but now that I suggest to people what it's done. So I said I did not exactly do this, but now I can write the story. This is the way to do it. Does it
Yeah,
make sense? So
it
sometimes
does.
you sort of
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you write it afterwards.
Exactly.
So there's what I call it a 9-word exercise, but the best piece to read is if anybody like just who's listening to this types in career architecting and my name. So
Okay.
career architecting and my name, they will find a free Substack. All my Substacks are free.
Great.
And there's free of ads, free of subscription. It's completely free.
Mm-hmm.
But they'll find that I've now come up like how do people with a certain amount of seasoning create new careers?
Mm-hmm.
And the first part of this career architecting is coming up with words that describe who you are, which is the way to frame and filter yourself in this new age. So I'll do it in 2 seconds, not 2 seconds, in less than 30 seconds for me.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have to come up with 3 words that describe your niche, which is what you're good at.
Okay.
3 words that describe your voice, which is who are you, and 3 words that describe your story, which is why should I believe you?
Okay.
Right? Somewhat similar to branding. What's your
Yeah.
niche? What's your voice? What's your story?
Yeah.
So in my case, my niche is future change and innovation. My voice is authentic, inspirational, provocative. And my story is global, mongrel, and reinventing.
Okay.
Okay. And I use those 9 words to both filter and frame. But in my particular case, I've reduced each of those to 1 word. So future, provocative, and reinventing are my words. My positioning is future. My approach is provocative. And I'm constantly thinking about or reinventing myself. And then I brought it down to 1 word, which is reinventing. Right? Which is about the future and it's about challenging the status quo, which is provocative. So it's reinventing.
Yeah.
But I said, nobody looks for reinventing, but that's what I am. So that's the skill set in this age. And then I say, okay, how do I plug that into what things are looking for that have to do with reinventing? And that's where I came up with change management, future of work, and modern leadership.
Got it.
To reinvent yourself, you have to think differently about your organization and learn how to change. You have to lead differently. And you may have to rethink your organizational design and what the future of work looks like, including yours. Right. And then in each case, I've written Substacks and podcasts and books to bring me credibility.
Yeah.
So that's how I show the whole thing in career architecting, step by step, how to do it. Right. But the first is do that 9-word exercise.
Yeah.
Okay. And that helps people because I said that is the DNA, right? That you're going to go out in a changing world. That is going to be the roots that you're going to hang on while you take wings in every direction. But you have to have some edge. You got to have something. You know, like if I went around and said I'm a doctor, it won't work. I'm a basketball player, it won't work.
Right.
Right. It's things like that.
Yeah, I think that's really critical because I would say a lot of folks right now feel a bit lost, right?
Yes.
Because their jobs are evolving or even getting eliminated. And they're showing up into this world with a sense of, well, who am I? And so I love that your exercise, first of all, it's very simple, which I think is critical because I think if you make it complex, people aren't going to do it. And the way you described your process through that, it just makes sense. I just like,
it does.
And
now people,
you have something.
What people do is they love it, but they also, I made it sound really easy because you have to really sit down with yourself and other people with those 9 words. And as I tell people, not 9 paragraphs, not 9 sentences, not 9 hyphenated words. It's words. Okay.
Yeah.
And talk to people because when it comes down to your voice, you got to talk to other people. Because it's very hard for you to understand your own voice.
I get that.
And so either sometimes you have a delusional voice or too humble a voice. So I talk to other people.
Yeah.
Right? And they say, hey, you actually are inspirational and you are authentic. So I said, fine. If I would call myself that, people would say, like, what the hell are you talking about? But, you know, those are the things I think that people do. And what I try to remind people is, look, yes, we are living in an age of agents, but we have never given up agency. Whoever says anyone's taking agency from you. And so what I always say, I get upset only when someone tells me that I have no agency.
Yeah.
Right. And I said, that's when you get like upset. There are 2 things that you never forgive people for. You forgive people for a lot of stuff. Okay. But there are two which not you don't forget, but you find it very hard to forgive people.
Yeah.
So one is if somebody humiliates you in public.
Mm.
Okay. And humiliation only occurs in public. Humiliation rarely occurs in private.
Right.
Okay. Because someone's got to look at your humiliation. So
Yeah.
if someone humiliates you, your whole stuff is like you just there's a visceral dislike of that person or that situation. That's one. And the second one is somebody basically puts you in a corner and basically says you have no choice. Right? I have taken away your agency. You have no freedom. You belong to me. Right?
Yeah.
That's the other, those are the two things. And so I basically say to people, is like, forget about the humility, being humiliated. I think what a lot of today companies are doing is they're trying to tell you you have no agency.
Yeah.
Right? You have no choice. Right? Especially this backlash recently. You will come back to the office 5 days a week. I'll monitor what you do.
Yep.
Bullshit.
Right.
Okay. That's basically a failure of leadership. It's not a failure of space.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a great point. I do think a lot of people I work with, and certainly when you just scan LinkedIn, 80% of it is people feeling backed into a corner.
Yeah, they're being backed into a corner. And the other thing, obviously, now because of both, the AI answer engines or chatbots or whatever, plus the fact that now every time you put a post, LinkedIn says, would you like me to AI that for you? Okay. I mentioned this and they were a little bit like worked up about it, but whatever. I wrote a piece where I basically said, most of the thinking in LinkedIn is what Madame Bovary talked about, Charles Bovary, right? That all of his thinking was walking on a thoroughfare of well-trod out thoughts. Okay. And I said, they're saying the same old shit with some AI writing on it. This is bullshit. Where's the spicy thinking? I said, where is the provocation? Where's the perspective? Where's the point of view? Where's the plan of action? This is AI bullshit. Look at me bullshit.
Yeah,
right? So some of the LinkedIn people
completely agree with you.
They
I think
very,
it's one of the reasons people some people are running away from LinkedIn and spending a little more time on Substack. And I think LinkedIn as an organization, is just not understanding the thing it created.
They have thought leadership people who don't have thought leadership.
Right.
Like, what? Come on now. Just come on. Right.
I am with you there. I definitely, I think we need a little more spice everywhere.
Right.
I liked, this notion of, being backed into a corner. And then it brought me back to your point about the folks who have the wisdom are the ones who know how to sort of sweep and find the corners.
Yeah, so it's basically, so my whole stuff is, look, I know the whole, and also what tends to happen is, and then who do you actually, and I said, look at the reverse. So the negative is, okay, who you dislike, okay? But let's not remember that most of the world is actually on the optimistic side. So my whole stuff is, okay, there's a reason to sometimes have rage in a cage, but it doesn't take you anywhere. Okay, so let's look at something better. So I always say, okay, who are the people that you like? And those are the people who do 2 or 3 things for you, right? They see you and pay attention to you. They see you as a person, not as a title, not as a budget line item. They see you as a person. They respectfully tell you the truth, right? So they'll tell you, hey, listen, you suck, but not like that. Like they'll say it in a different way. But they then leave you with exact next steps to go forward. Right? So the whole idea is I'm paying attention to you. I'm providing you with some feedback on how to improve. And I'm giving you exactly what next steps you need to improve. Right? You end up liking the person. You like definitely the first and third parts. The second part you may not like that much. But because someone paid attention to you, they suggested there was a challenge. They told you how to fix it and what to do and said, if you want help, I can be there.
Yeah.
Those are the people you remember. Right? But what it requires you to do is you actually have to pay attention to somebody. Right? Versus posting to the entire world some drivel. Right?
Yeah.
It's basically like my whole thing is it's just a pristine AI-driven diarrhea. It's like
yeah. Oh my God. What a visual. I agree with that. I think the more you can write from the perspective of actual people,
of actually helping people. So,
Right.
the stuff like when I post stuff on LinkedIn, like I'm either promoting people who have been successful, saying, hey, look, watch these people, or I'm just basically saying, here is a short summary of a guest on a podcast of mine. So here's the podcast. You should listen to
Yeah.
this thing. It's really cool. If you don't have time, here is some of the key takeaways for
Yeah.
you that this person said, right? Like,
Yeah.
here's how to run meetings, right?
Yeah.
Or here's how to be more creative, or here's how to do this. And so my whole stuff is, here is stuff somebody who is world class who I've talked to has provided, which I find really useful, and you might find really useful. It's not like what I found really useful. This is what I talked to, right?
Right.
And then from time to time, I'll say, years over the years, what I've learned, right? But not what I've learned how to be so cool, but how I've learned the 9-word exercise that you can use to be so cool,
Yeah.
right? I used it on myself, proof of concept, right? But you can use it on yourself, right? And it can be potentially good. Versus I, me, mine, I, me, mine. Nobody wants that.
Yeah. Help me see things differently, and then
Help
help
me
me
see
find a
things
way out.
differently. Show me the way forward.
Yeah.
Pay attention to me. And you do that once, and
Yeah.
people will remember you.
Yeah.
You put 100 posts about how cool you are, and nobody will remember you.
I know. It's amazing. And yet there's still 100 million
Yeah.
posts about how cool people are. You talked a lot about, like, mentioned leadership, the crisis of leadership. And I think what does a leader need? Who does a leader need to be right now, given all of the turmoil and AI, a hybrid workforce of agents and humans? And how do you show up that way?
So, to an extent, today I would say that there are maybe half a dozen, no more than that, maybe 3 or 4, maybe 6 key behaviors and ways of working. I won't even call them expertise, behaviors and ways of working and characteristics, I guess, that make a good leader. So the first one, which is very, very important, is a leader acknowledges, faces, and speaks about reality. So it's basically, this is the situation. So it's not like some Pollyannish thing, okay? Which is like, if you lose credibility if you basically say everything's fine, why are you worried? Well, last 3 quarters, our earnings are down, we're losing clients. How can you say everything is fine, right? So one is you have to face reality and acknowledge and face and talk about reality. That's one thing leaders have to do.
Yeah.
The second thing what leaders have to do is they then basically have to inspire people by painting what the next thing will look like, why things will get better, or if it's already good, why it'll keep getting better, or if it's already good, how to watch out for the reality of competition that may come to make it not so better. But the whole idea is, here's our current situation, and to go from year to year, that's a story. Okay, but it's a story grounded in, here's who we are, here's where I want to go, and so that's this. Third is you have to manage or lead through a zone of influence versus zone of control. Okay, which is sort of very, 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 very important. And so when you talk realistically, you get trust, which is very important. When you basically say, here's how we can get to the next place, you're basically mentoring, leading, guiding, and inspiring. And then the way you're doing it is through a zone of influence versus a zone of control. Okay. So those are the ways that it comes up to me. As internally myself, in addition to exhibiting those 3 behaviors, what I have to basically be is in a constant state of learning and unlearning. Okay. So I've started a new podcast. I have one called, Rethinking Work. I have another thing called What Next. But a new one, which I sort of co-thing, is called Unbossing. Okay. And in Unbossing, I talk to world-class leaders who've learned how to unboss and unlearn. And people like Reed Hastings and Jim McCann of 1-800-Flowers and Janet Fauci, who was the CEO and chairman of Deloitte, people like that. Okay. And the whole stuff is like, how do we learn how to unboss and unlearn? How do we learn how to fire ourselves? How do we learn how to let go? Right. So I would basically say, face reality, inspire people to what is coming, next.
Hmm.
Zone of influence versus zone of control, while constantly learning and unlearning.
Hmm.
That's what modern leadership is all about,
Yeah.
right? It is
Hmm.
not about hardcore. It's not about return to the office,
Hmm.
right? It's not about, AI is going to come and take your goddamn job. It's
Right.
not about buzzword bingo, which is
Hmm.
what we're hearing from people.
Well, yeah. Buzzword bingo was a pretty popular game in the agency world, I will say.
Yeah.
The unlearning thing is interesting to me because I think that's often where we get stuck, right? Is we a thing worked.
It is. And that's why it's so hard. It's the thing that is hardest is letting go.
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay. And there are lots of reasons, and it's very, very hard. So letting go is hard because you fall in love with certain things. The
Hmm.
other is when you're letting go, not only are you giving up something, but you're basically saying, who am I without those things or
Hmm.
without that way or without that approach? And so again, there I tell people do it in a slightly different way. So for instance, when I was speaking to Janet Fowdy, who's the CEO of Deloitte, so she and I were sort of not commiserating, but comparing notes
Hmm.
because I spent 37 years in a company and she spent 33.
Okay.
Okay. And she ended up being the CEO of Deloitte Consulting and then the chairman of Deloitte United States.
Well.
Okay. Very, very, very senior.
Hmm.
And so the question was when you left, and she did the whole midnight hour thing. She says that's what, but I said, when you left, did you struggle with who you are versus you from Deloitte?
Yeah.
Right. And she says, not that much because I was doing it in phases. And then she and I discussed that what we actually did is the way we sort of did not do cold turkey.
Hmm.
So it wasn't like we were there and we were gone, which happens when you get kicked out when you're past 1 minute past midnight.
Yep.
But what we did is both of us untied and loosened, but we did not cut.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the way to let go is to do it gently while you're tying yourself into something else or
Yeah.
finding, right? So it isn't like I've I'm done, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I phased out over 2 years and then I'm still
Hmm.
an advisor. Okay.
Yeah.
It was step by step. Now, it wasn't, I could build a big whole case that was because, the company needed me, etc. It was
Right.
as much because the company said, okay, clown, you got to go gently, otherwise you'll have cold turkey problems.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's mutually beneficial that we do it this way. But
Hmm.
what was happening is I was building the next. And my next wasn't like, oh, I'm building the next thing to Publicis. I'm building my next. Publicis is the next is whatever that is. I'm building mine. But I was building it while I was stuff. So I always tell people like time allows you to figure things out,
Hmm.
right? Including in some particular cases, including when you've got some crazy people you're working with. I remind people, so sometimes people would say, Rishad, you're not making a decision, you're procrastinating. So
Hmm.
I would say it's not procrastination, even though if it was, I
Yeah.
had to give it some sort of big meaning. So I said, look, it's actually the learnings from Queen Elizabeth I. Okay. And they said, what are you talking about? You're procrastinating.
Right.
I said, no, Queen Elizabeth I says, time dissolves more problems than man solves.
Mm. Hmm.
Okay. So I said, this clown, whether it's a client or someone inside the company, is so bad that let's just give it 3, 4 months and they'll self implode. Why do we want to get into this whole thing?
Mm.
So, in the meanwhile, we just protect ourselves from their useless behavior as
Yeah.
much as we can. But attacking them will bring us down, and we may not actually, let's just let them unravel,
Let
but
them
give them
kind
4 or 5 months to unravel,
flame out,
flame
basically.
out, right?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and that, you know, and that like gets people who are flaming out even more mad because you're watching them flame out and you're not falling into their trap.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Yeah, why aren't you
Yeah,
freaking
you aren't
out?
falling like so. It's
Yeah.
very much like the way I would basically say is it's Queen Elizabeth I or it's Yoda.
Yeah, I like those analogies or models of
Yeah.
behavior. I know you talk a lot about the future of work. I'm curious if there's one conversation around the future of work that you feel like we should be having,
Yeah.
but we're not really having.
So I believe that there are four key things about the future of work that I truly believe is more likely to happen than not. Nobody knows for certain what's going to
Sure.
happen. But I would basically say I would bet my future if I'm working, so I'm betting my future on this. But a lot of what I'm talking about actually affects a one-person company much less than it affects people who are running companies. So I asked people who are running companies to pay attention to this. Because I said, if I pay attention to it, that's fine. But some of them don't really apply to me these days. So what are the four? The first one is that jobs and work are uncoupling. That companies have been organized around jobs and they need to be organized around work.
Yeah.
Right? So jobs is a process and work is an outcome. And in an agentic world, the agents care about outcomes. They don't care about the process. Right? So the first is think about jobs and work separately. So think about maximizing your company for work. If you're looking for a job, think about looking for work first versus looking for a job. So that's the first one. Jobs and work are uncoupling. The second is that the majority of your company in many service businesses by the end of this decade will be fractionalized employees and agentic employees and freelance employees versus full-time employees.
Yeah.
So your full-time employees will be probably less than 50, maybe
Right.
30, 40% of your workforce. And your company isn't organized that way.
Yeah.
Right? One of the organizational challenges is should HR and IT be the same department? Because a
Interesting.
majority of your employees and majority of your expenses are going to be agentic and tokens.
Wow.
Okay. So if in that, so that's the second one. If the company is about agentic, HI, fractionalized employees, what does that mean for the way you guide people, build people, etc.? So that's the second one. The third one is that many of the things that you believed were the big parts of your company are actually going to be threats versus edges. So they're going to be weaknesses versus strengths. So for instance, outside of a few industries, scale will be a disadvantage.
Okay.
Okay. Telling people about how many employees you have will be a disadvantage. What will be an advantage will be revenue per employee, not number of employees. Right? So the metrics of how you measure success in your company will change. So jobs and work will be uncoupled. Your employee base will be completely different, and therefore your organizational design should be different. Right? Third is how you measure the value of what you do is different. And the fourth and last one is do not think about efficiency and effectiveness of AI. Think of the opportunistic or think of the existential opportunities and threats of AI. So what I basically mean is in the digital age, every newspaper said, we'll use digital technology to do the following: to reroute our trucks better, to buy printing presses cheaper, to buy paper cheaper, to find out a different ways of getting subscribers using online marketing. The New York Times asked a separate question. Those are efficiency and effectiveness questions. They asked a separate question. In this particular age, is our newspaper a newspaper? Or is it a multimedia company? Is our newspaper about New York? Or is it about the world? Is our newspaper about the news? Or is it a lifestyle? Today, New York Times is a lifestyle business with 11 out of 12 subscribers being online, a majority of its people being outside of New York, and 30% of its revenue coming from things like recipes and Wordle.
Wow.
Right? And
Yeah.
every company is thinking about how do I take my current business model and AI it? And I said, no. How do you basically reimagine your business?
Yeah.
So those are the four things. Reimagine your entire business, rethink the metrics of your business, think about what your future workforce will look like, and think about jobs and work uncoupling. I just told you four things that not enough people are paying attention to, while they're paying attention to absolute bullshit.
Oh my God.
And they're paying a whole bunch of consultants and idiots to basically take money from them with an absolute amount of bullshit.
I think you I mean, they're all brilliant, but I think the two that really jump out at me and the things that really frustrate me about the AI conversation are the workforce conversation.
Yeah.
And thinking about that not purely in terms of what do these things do, but how do I organize my company around this kind of workforce?
Yes.
What does a thing like work culture mean when 50% of your employees are agentic and most of the rest are fractional and freelance, and then some are this, and then what does process look like? All that stuff. But then the last one is the big one, the inability to reimagine in the presence of this tool that is actually this potential gift to allow us to reimagine. And, and you see, certainly in advertising, it's like, how can I squeeze more with AI out of this business model, as opposed to, is this business model even relevant? Is an ad agency even a thing that matters anymore? And if not, what do we do? Like, what could we create with these tools? Who could we be? And how could we show up and add value into the world with the collective set of skills plus this technology? And I see virtually none of that.
No, because I'll tell you what basically happens is it's easier to basically write a piece on AI than try to reinvent your company. Because when you have to reinvent your company or your team, it begins with you yourself having to change.
Yeah.
And what I have written about often in my first book is change sucks. It's really difficult.
Yeah.
But at the same time, while change sucks, irrelevance is even worse.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's what I basically tell people. I go to leaders and say, listen, jokers, people think you're full of shit.
Yeah.
Okay, you're listening to me because I don't have a job, so you can't fire me. And I actually did things that were actually worthwhile once upon a time. But like, stop hanging out with each other and
Right.
thinking you're like cool. You're on. Right? I say like so many leaders are basically beginning to believe that their flatulence smells like Chanel 5. It doesn't.
That is a quote that's going to show up somewhere in the write up on this. I know I've been asking you a fair amount of questions, Rishad. I'd love to give you a chance to pose a question to the audience.
Well, I think there are two things that I would pose to the audience besides, hopefully this was not something that was terrible to listen to or watch. But I would ask the audience, and the question that I would basically sort of ask them is very simply that I would say, why should you not think that the future is going to be far better versus far worse? Right? And so I would say build the case for optimism. And I would remind them that they should ask that would they be more better off living today than 20 years ago? Okay.
Yeah.
And in most people's cases, not everybody's case, they would say that they're much better off living today versus
Right.
20 years ago. And so I believe that what people are doing is they're spending too many of our hours and days raging and being pessimistic when I believe we are in the most optimistic and growth times with challenges,
Of course.
right?
Yeah.
And with great amounts of shifts. But guess what? It is actually a good time. And the way I remind people is I said, lots of things, lots of room for improvement. But if you were a person of color, a woman, gay, it's better today than 20 years ago, with the exception of, the Supreme Court ruling,
Right.
on abortion. So you're better off today versus 20 years ago.
Yeah.
If you like music and movies, you're better off today than 20 years ago. You can access all the movies that you'll ever want between all the streaming services of 20 years ago, if that's all you wanted. More movies than you could access 20 years ago, you can access today.
Yeah.
But you have the movies of the next 20 years, plus you have the ability to make your own movie if you want.
Yeah.
If you are suffering from cancer, right? AI just came up with a new thing that allows you to identify pancreatic cancer 3 years earlier than the latest services,
Wow.
right? So my whole stuff is everything is fine, but the headlines make you think everything is terrible.
Agreed.
Trust yourself. Don't trust the headlines.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's a great question, a great provocation. I would even build on that with the idea that when you build the case for optimism and you see what's good, you realize that the future isn't simply happening. I I'm I'm building it. You're building it. My neighbors are building it. Like we're creating it. So if we create it through the lens of the world sucks and it's going to hell in a handbasket, well
See,
then guess
that's
what
what
we're
you
going
would
to
create.
get?
So I basically believe the future doesn't happen to us. We
Mm-hmm.
happen to have a stake in the future.
Yeah.
But at the very same stage, the future does not adapt to us. We
Mm.
have to adapt to the future,
Sure.
right? So I said the future doesn't happen to you. We happen to also have a stake. But on
Mm-hmm.
the other hand, the future won't adapt to us. We will have to adapt to it.
Yeah. 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 No, I like that. That's a good nuanced view of things. If you could wave a magic wand and fully desuckify the world of work, what does that look like?
I would, if I could fully desuckify the world of work, I would ideally find a way where every person aligns with a profession that fits them.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
That, that, you know, as people often say, this profession or what I do fits me.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get almost perfect fit, it's fantastic. But the closer you get to a fit, the better it is.
Mm-hmm.
And and that again requires us to adapt ourselves. So often, I often tell people, why are you doing something that you don't like
Yeah.
year after year after year?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the answers are fear, I don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes the answers are, I've got used to a lifestyle and this allows me to have that lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I said, fine, but what you're basically saying is that you're miserable on a lifestyle and you could actually be much more freer with a less of a lifestyle.
Right.
And the other is, what would people think of me if I didn't do this? Which
Yeah.
is that I say you're living in someone else's mind,
Mm-hmm.
right? So obviously there are reasons why people have jobs that they don't like.
Sure.
They don't have options. They need the income. There's not so not positive. They're real reasons.
Yeah.
But for some people, there are reasons of pricing themselves out of their dreams
Mm.
or living in other people's minds.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the good news is, like, I was on the receiving end of my own advice, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by that is one of our two daughters one day comes to me and says, I want to have a job change. And I said, but you're doing really, really well. You're making lots of money and it's a great job. She says,
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing well. I'm making money. It's a good job. It's definitely a good job. But I don't want to do this for the rest of my life because I want to actually make things and create things and I just want to sell things.
Mm.
Okay. And I'm not a coder. And this company has a class system where the highest class are people who make it, and the rest of it are people who sell it. We make lots of money and everything. So
Right.
she worked at Google and she was there for
Okay.
6 years.
Yeah.
But she says, I just don't know how to code at the high level.
Mm-hmm.
I basically, I'm a strategist, a seller, etc.
Yeah.
But I want to make things. And they tell me to go do YouTube. I want to actually learn how to make things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, fine. And she says, Dad, remember you said, do not price yourself out of your dreams. If I still having this job, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
have to start. I'll have a lifestyle with this side of income, and it's hard to get that income in other places. And fine, if I'm not working at Google, who cares? I do not live in other people's minds,
Yeah.
right? So she started again. So she went back to school, got an MFA, got an MBA, went to Tisch, learned how to do film and movie making, started as a assistant in a writer's room,
Mm-hmm.
assistant to a showrunner getting tea and coffee.
Yeah.
And 10 years later, she has 3 short films on HBO. She writes her own television
Wow.
shows,
Mm.
right?
That's
But
awesome.
but and my wife said, what is this? And I said, she's using my lines against me, right? So it's not easy. Like my own stuff is like, what is this? And I was in a fortunate position where I could actually fund her
Yeah.
a new thing, which she could have self-funded because of her Google stuff. But I said,
Sure.
you keep your little Google stock and I'll
Yeah.
help you underwrite this.
Yeah.
But my whole stuff is, look, this, and now she says, I love what I do,
Mm-hmm.
right? Even though she works for 7, 8 months, and then 4 months she has in
Yeah.
between gigs and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I want to do. And I said, and I also remind people, and this is the thing that I remind people, and this is something that, apparently Daniel Pink wrote, and then Janet Foudy told me, and I've read this in a different way. So this is not a Daniel Pink or a Janet Foudy line,
Okay.
but a question I would also ask your listeners are, don't you think that in life we eventually regret the errors of commission less than the errors of omission?
Mm.
Okay. Which
Yeah.
is, we tend to regret the chances not taken.
Yeah.
We tend to regret what we didn't do. We
Mm-hmm.
don't regret what we did, even if it fails.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So my stuff is when you're frozen, take a
Mhm.
risk, take
Yeah.
it gradually, loosen quietly, build a
Yeah.
trampoline. Unlike a lot of other people, I understand what real world is, real
Mhm.
bills are, and all of that, right?
Sure.
But do that, because what you do have is just one real asset, which is your time.
Yeah. Mm.
And I think it was Mary Dillard or Ann Dillard, one of them, who basically said, the way you spend your days is the way you spend your life.
Yeah.
Right. And since
Mhm.
more than 50% of our waking life tends to be spent in what we do as quote unquote work.
Yeah.
Obviously, people who look after their kids and all that's also work, but
Sure.
in this work,
Yeah.
maybe we should like what we do.
I love that. I mean, that's basically the reason I do what I'm doing.
Yep.
Because I believe that so fully. One thing I like to do with my guests, I want to see if you're up for it, is I like to have a little fun.
Sure.
And I have some sound effects on my show. If you've heard
You
them,
bet.
there's cats meowing and other goofy stuff. And I always give the guest a chance if they want to add a sound effect that will show up somewhere in the intro to the show. So are you game for making a sound?
Yes.
Awesome. What do you got?
So my sound is actually a line.
Okay.
Tick tock. It's your life on the clock.
I love that. That kind of puts a period at the end of what you were just talking about. Well, that's beautiful. I mean, the only other thing I want to give people a chance to find you. So how do people track down your Substack and find all the good work you're doing?
So the best way to find me is at rishad.substack.com. That's rishad.substack.com.
Okay.
The other thing they can do is they can type in my name, which is Rishad Tobaccowala, and add the number 100.
Okay.
And they'll get to a secret page on my website,
Ooh,
not
nice.
private or hidden,
Yeah.
which is the best of 6 years of writing organized by subject on one page. So there's a section on managing careers, a section on the future of AI,
Yeah.
all on one page. And from there, they can navigate the rest of my website if they're interested. But this is a page which is for them,
Yeah.
which is what I've done is I've taken 6 years of writing and curated it under 4 lenses. So one lens is called the world. One lens is called the work. One lens is called the craft. And one lens is called the self. Right. And in each case, I've got 3 sections of things like, the future section will have the future of marketing and creativity, the future of AI, the future of work.
Okay.
And people can sort of read those. Those are the best ways. And then when they're there, if they click on my website, they'll see my bio, the podcasts that I have, which are Unbossing, What Next, and Rethinking Work.
Okay. And should people even bother trying to track you down on LinkedIn, or do you want to keep them?
You can reach out on LinkedIn, and I will reach back out to you. So that's just on my LinkedIn address.
Yeah.
And it's definitely and basically, I post whenever I publish anything, I post a summary of it on LinkedIn with the actual link.
Got it.
So if people don't have time to do that, because I'm not in my particular case, outside of like one thing, which is the one that's unbossing with iHeartMedia, my other podcasts are not monetized by traffic or anything.
Okay.
So in effect, if people don't have the time to go listen to the whole thing, I have summarized it for people. But usually what happens is the summary tends to be like an appetizer and they're like listening to the whole thing.
Awesome.
But some people don't have the time.
Of course.
I would rather get my guest idea out there to people.
Yeah.
Right. So I've always basically said, reaching more people, even with small snippets, is better. So it's my version of clipping, which apparently is the cool thing these days.
Excellent. Well, Rishad, thank you so much for a delightful conversation. I think you've given certainly me, and I imagine everyone listening, a lot to chew on.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to the DesuckifyWork podcast. And a huge thanks to Rishad for bringing a refreshing look at the future of work to the show. You can follow Rishad on LinkedIn and check out rishadtobaccowala.com to learn more about his work. Add /100 to that URL to see a curated view of his Substack writing. And take a look at rishad.substack.com to see more. If you enjoyed the conversation and would like to explore what a more human work culture could look like, I invite you to schedule a free half-hour discovery session. Type meow in the calendar invite, and I'll also send you a free DesuckifyWork t-shirt. Bye, everyone!